right, everybody, this is Steve with Real Progressives. Tonight, our talk is going to be about some of the things that are going on right now. We've been dealing with Green New Deal blowback since Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came out and put forward her Green New Deal. It was first, it wasn't socialist enough. Second, it wasn't strong enough. Third, it was not a Green New Deal because it didn't include cutting the military and 50%. Then it was, you just want free stuff. Then it was a whole shitload of things. It was always some other trope about how you're going to pay for it. There was always some bullshit thing that came out as it were pertaining to a Green New Deal. But it's not just a Green New Deal, is it? I mean, we're talking about people, our kinfolk, our friends, our fellow activists, the politicians, the media, everyone mocking us as in, how are you going to pay for it? Every single one of them mocking us as in, how are you going to pay for it? And you think to yourself, I've been doing this for a long time. My first inclination at this point, unfortunately, is to rage. To rage. Not because people don't know, not because people are all learning, but because I'm watching the clock tick. And I'm watching my life get shittier and shittier in different ways. And I'm watching other people around me's lives get shittier and shittier in different ways. And I'm watching a whole bunch of people that don't have the mental aptitude to do more than just get angry go forward and try to make a lot of noise, which distracts people. And all I see is distraction upon distraction upon distraction. And I get terrified. I get terrified about what it is that it's going to take to make us move forward, to be able to do anything other than just be angry and bounce around like ping pong balls all over a table. I talked to someone earlier today, and I made mention. I was like, my health has been rough, and I've had different things going on. Obviously, I was unemployed for a while. It's a very, very difficult time dealing with a lot of this stuff. And I couldn't quite figure out why my first instinct is to literally beat the living crap out of people, verbally, mentally, when they say things that don't seem to be very intelligent, when they don't understand what's going on. My first instinct is not to lovingly embrace them. I admit it right now. I'm telling you straightforward. My first instinct is to not give a gentle hug. Now, I'm okay, to be fair. I'm completely okay with people not understanding and asking me questions. This is not an issue of that. But in my real life, when I'm walking around, I don't feel the need to wail on people that don't understand, that act like assholes. I just walk away from them. I ignore them. So why is it that this thing about economics brings about such a visceral reaction? Why is it so hard to get past that first moment where the first thought is to lunge at the camera, to lunge at the comments, to see people that are saying really stupid things in the comments, to not just really, really fight back? And I just sort of went through this whole process earlier with one of our team members and talked about it. And I realized that time is ticking. I've done this for an incredibly long period of time. And I'd like to see the lights firing and activists. I'd like to see activists stepping up and taking these comments on. People that haven't finished building their muscles and cutting their teeth and building their acumen, stepping up and dialoguing. I can't do a MMT 101 every single video. Every single video I do cannot be starting from the ground up telling you that a dollar is a tax credit, a dollar is a unit of measure. I started thinking about it. It's like, if you're only preaching to the choir and the choir's not listening, then what do you do? If you're trying to explain this stuff and show them where the resources are, and people check out or they don't do whatever, how do you get further? And that's when I start getting dark and gloomy. I start saying, for God's sake, what do I do? I don't know how to overcome that sorrow, that deep feeling of sorrow that I feel when I don't see maybe my own team stepping up and really learning how to debate properly, when I don't see the people in the audience that understand these subjects, when I see them more aligned with a libertarian like Yang, talking about a UBI and not really understanding what a federal job guarantee is, but still pushing back. Do you understand? They're pushing back without knowing even what the subject is. And then I watch my videos every again because people say, you didn't make a single point in that video or something like that. I'm like, wow, I didn't make a single point. And so I take that seriously because I don't do this for my health. I'm not entertainment TV. I'm not trying to be an entertainer. I guess there are times where I try to make it entertaining. But I'm an activist, and I get in front of a mic and I have a camera and I talk about economics because that's my subject matter. But when you have people out there talking about a Green New Deal and white people just wanting free stuff, or other people going, this dumbass doesn't know his ass from his elbow. And who's paying you to do this? Well, I'm not getting a cent for it, unfortunately. I'm friggin' not earning anything from it. So what makes awful people say awful, stupid things like this? I mean, this is why I want to jump at them and go American History X on them. This is what sends me to the moon. I mean, seriously. You look at the suffering in society, the real genuine suffering out there. And if you're not moved to action, I'm not sure what it'll take to get you there. If you're not raising your hand asking what you can do to help, I'm not sure what you're doing. And then I get the invariable, well, Steve, you're always talking about this economics thing, and it's so highbrow, and people don't understand what you're saying because you're not saying it in their language. I'm like, what's a recovering druggy drunk, former homeless dude that still uses word dude when talking about macroeconomics? What more do I have to do to cross that line to speak the common language with the regular people? To make it simple. To keep it simple, stupid. I don't know. But I started thinking about it, and I realized that there are times where maybe I say things in a jargony way, or maybe I don't connect the dots for everybody because I'm just assuming people know what's going on. Now, I had a whole bunch of screenshots, and they're actually sitting there, but I'm not going to show them. Because I wanted to show you all what kind of comments we get so you understand what I'm talking about, so you don't just think I'm making this stuff up. But it's depressing, not because they're attacking me, because, guys and gals, I've been attacked by far better, far smarter, by far better, and they have done some serious damage. So I know what that looks like. This ain't damage. This is just a pain in the ass. And if I was just doing this for the hell of it, being a pain in the ass, being a troll, whatever, it wouldn't bother me. People are bored. They got shitty lives. They do what they do. No big deal. But when I see our media personalities not saying economics correctly so that we don't rally behind the right things, so we don't believe we should deserve a job guarantee, so we don't believe we deserve health care and all the rest, so we don't believe we deserve a better life, I get really upset. I mean, really upset. It's more than triggered. Some asshole said, "Oh, it looks like the host is getting triggered." Man, I'm a big guy. Trust me. It's not triggering me like what you think it is. Wrong triggering. See, I just happen to be a dad. And I realize the kind of trolling that people are doing is keeping my son that much further away from the services he needs. And that means they're my enemy, right? That's the way I look at them. They're my enemy. And I feel like there are people that put my son's life in jeopardy by trolling these things that block other people from learning, that I feel have forfeited their value to society. And I get raging. I get angry, bitterly angry, because I look and think about my son. Now, I don't know what motivates you. I'm sure we all have our own motivation for why we engage in debate, why we talk about things that we talk about, why we activate and fight for causes that we believe in. I'd like to just say it's all innate. It's all inside me that just says, oh, I got to do this. And there's a lot of it that is that way. I'm at a point now where I don't think I could turn this off if I tried. But I look at my family and I say, my goodness, everybody's got to do every little thing they can do, whether it be big, whether it be small, whatever they can do. All right. So enough about that. So what is it that makes people think that social programs, not just social programs, because that kind of gets a stigma, right? What is it about government-sponsored benefits for the citizenry, citizens' benefits, makes people think we're fighting for free stuff, makes people think somehow or another by equating my survival with free stuff, that somehow or another is a one-for-one? And I think it really comes back to a complete lack of understanding of how this whole game is played. And I'm really going to reject all attempts at any kind of mythology, any kind of, tales from the fire pit. I understand being anti-establishment. I've been anti-establishment most of my life. You know, as a Republican previously, we hated the government. We wanted to tear it down. Hated this, hated that, whatever. As a libertarian, felt the same way. Different, but the same. But on this journey into progressivism, fueled 100% by an understanding of economics, and then a look-see through all the arguments that I had made as a right-winger, as a conservative, as someone who didn't really understand how economics worked. And this is not just Republican. This is Democrats, too, who don't understand economics but have been listening to their favorite mad cow on the radio and repeat really stupid things about Russiagate and other stuff. These sorts of people, right? They just repeat what they've heard. A lot of folks do. This is not just limited to one party or the other, right? So I kept trying to figure out what was the missing pieces. Why was it so damn difficult for other people to get on with this? After all, I had come from being a freaking radical right-wing Republican to a New Dealer on steroids. a hardcore New Dealer. I'd give everybody free college. I'd give everybody free health care. I'm not talking about Medicare for all, folks. I'm talking about full-on free care, whatever, man. And why is that? Well, I know economics now. I understand economics at a level that most people don't, to be fair. I'm not on the level of the economists that I study under, that I cherish, and that whose work I stand on. I'm talking about as an average Joe, as a regular citizen, a non-economist economist, a lay economist, whatever you want to call me, a popularizer or whatever, an advocate. And I sat down at work, new job, sitting there talking to people, made some really nice friends. I started talking to a guy today, and he helped me put a lot of this stuff in perspective. You see, he's an older guy. He's a turnip farmer, was a turnip farmer. Now he's a high-end engineer. Knows his stuff inside and out, but he's never owned a credit card, never had a nickel of debt in his life, has always lived purely on a cash system, was in the military. All he knows is his church, and he knows that he gives 10% to his church. He knows he pays his bills on time, and that's it. Nothing more. He's never wanted. He's always managed. That's not the story for most people. But as I sat there, we watched a show, a video by Jordan Peterson, libertarian guy. And Jordan Peterson made this very astute analysis. I know it's hard to give the enemy credit, but he made astute analysis of the Price's Law, which says that 80% of the work is typically done by 20% of the people. And there's another thing called Pareto's Law, which shows that like 80% of the problems are caused by 20%, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting to hear his take on things as we talked about this. And his angle was, well, listen, Steve, it's true. He goes, look around here, look around there. He goes, most people sit there on the sidelines watching people do the work. They sit there and watch the activists work. They don't pitch in. They don't go out and do research. They just want to be entertained. Come to work, most people sit there and stand around the manhole while one guy's with the jackhammer. Look over there. You've always got one guy turning the screws and 10 others watching him. And we started talking about how the wealthy, in Jordan Peterson's world, should have all the money. And as you dug deeper into this, you realized that he was playing on the John Galt, Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged school of objectivism. Basically, the makers versus the takers. And making the case that the makers are a rare breed indeed. Those makers are the ones that do all the work in the world. They're the ones that make everything happen. And the takers just sit around and take. They just want free stuff. And as I listened to that, I got really, it was really depressing, quite frankly. But we talked some more, and I said to him, well, what if I told you that our federal government, when it spends money into existence, used to spend money toward the people? But now, when it spends at the top, expecting it somehow or another to trickle down. Well, instead of that money trickling down, it's used to buy financial services, debt instruments. They don't actually invest in businesses anymore like they used to. They just financialize. They earn interest money. And none of that money, or very little of it, makes it down to the little people. His take on it was, well, Steve, and at my church, I see a lot of people that create businesses. I see a lot of these benevolent souls that are taking care of people. And when you're in a church environment, there are people out there that want to do good. Yeah, they make money, whatever, but I can understand, if you don't understand the system, how you could fall in love with the wealthy and say, they are God on earth. These people are doing it all. Without them, we're lost. And so we sat there and talked some more, and I said, well, what happens? Because money has like what I call a natural helium effect. Money always rises to the top. What if, instead of spending all that money at the top, we spent a good deal of it down at the bottom, so that money had to first touch hands with the poor before it ever went up to the rich? What if the poor had to have the first pass at the cash? He kind of looked at me funny. He goes, are you saying that the government can just print money? And I said, well, let's start from the beginning. I said, what do you think a dollar is? And we had this discussion back and forth, and I said to him, I said, the dollar is nothing more than a tax credit waiting to be redeemed. He gave me an inquisitive look. And I said, I must not be saying this right. He goes, look, man, I'm just a turnip farmer. I said, damn it, I got to figure out a different way of saying this. So I said to him, I said, well, back in the day, farmers and village people, not the village people, but village people, people in the village, they, plowed their fields, they harvested whatever they planted, they went out hunting, they went out fishing, they knocked boots, they did whatever they do in their little hut. All of a sudden the king says, I want to build an aqueduct, I want to build a castle, I want to build roads, I want to build a library, I want to arm my military, I want to build armor for my military, I want to do something. And he's like, I'll give you a gold coin to do something. The guy goes, what am I going to do with a gold coin? What, make some earrings with it? What am I doing with a gold coin? The king says, got me, bro. That's exactly it. You're not doing anything with it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a tax on your little house. And if you want to keep your little house, you're going to pay me this tax. But it's only payable in this coin that has my face on it. And the guy goes, well, how do I get that coin with your face on it? He goes, funny you should ask that. I want to build an aqueduct. I want to build a road. I want to build a castle. I'll pay you so many of these coins with my face on it, and you get to keep your house by paying the tax. Now, if the guy said no, you got your first unemployed person, because now the guy rejected the employment that could have gotten him the gold coin, and now he's going to lose his home because they're going to come, they're going to seize it because they didn't pay his tax. They're going to put him in the stockade. They're going to do whatever it is they did back in those days. And he goes, so you're telling me that the reason why that gold coin had any value is because the king was issuing a tax in it? And I said, yep. He goes, interesting. I said, it's the same thing with our dollar today. I said, dollar today isn't worth anything. It's a piece of paper. You can fold it up, make a football with it. You can make a paper airplane with it. You could stitch it up and use it as a patch on your pants. The only thing that gives that dollar credit is that you can pay your taxes with it. I said, but you can't pay your taxes with diamonds, gold, chicken necks, frog legs. You can only pay it with that dollar. He goes, well, that's not true. I could always sell my chicken legs and my diamonds and everything and get that dollar. I said, but you have to sell those things to get that dollar. You just showed me commerce created by the tax. The tax created buyers and sellers of goods and services. We have tax-driven money. And he goes, remember, Steve, I'm just a turnip farmer. And I said, I understand. So we went back and forth for a little while longer. He says, I still don't understand how you're telling me the government creates money. And I said, what does Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution say? You open it up. He said, well, Congress has the power to create money. He goes, doesn't the bank do that? And I said, well, if you look, Congress created the bank that does that. And it's by Congress's order that it does these things. The bank, the central bank, has become the proxy of the Congress. He goes, remember, Steve, I'm a turnip farmer. I said, the bank was subcontracted, if you want to call it that. It was created to clear payments. It was created for the purposes of handling the books, for accounting, to clear payments, to make sure that the banks were able to clear payments in a uniform fashion, nothing more, nothing less. I said, it's the nation's central bank, and it does the bidding of Congress. He was like, very interesting. I said, you're going to hear a lot of people talking about Rothschild this, Rothschild that, but there have always been rich people in the world, and there will probably always be rich people in the world. Some people can't quite understand that, so they got to create stories based on innuendo and other, wives' tales, whatever you want to call them. So always traced with just enough truth to make them stick around for a while. But we're not talking about the hardcore truth that matters. We're talking about just enough folklore in there mixed with just enough truth to keep people sidelined from taking action. I say, I still don't quite understand what you're saying. He goes, I go out, I earn a living, I bring $1 home for my paycheck, and that's how I get money. I said, that's how you get money because you're not a currency issuer. I said, we have currency issuers, people that actually can create the money that the government taxes in, the government's unit of account. And then we have people that create credit. Credit in the government's unit of account. It was interesting. I said, if you take out $5,000 loan and you've got to pay interest on it, can you net save that money? He goes, what do you mean net save? I said, can you stash that money away and not eventually have it dissipate? I said, well, I guess it depends on the interest rate and the amount you earn on saving in your savings account or whatever. But in reality, you've got to pay that money back. But when you earn $1, do you have to pay it back? He said, well, you have to pay your taxes. I said, yeah, but taxes aren't all even. It's not a 1-for-1. Every dollar you make doesn't have to be paid in taxes. So how does that come to be? I said, there's endogenous money creation and there's exogenous money creation. He looked at me and said, turnip farmer. I said, God damn it. I said, so there's government spent money, and then there's bank loaned money. How's that? He goes, okay. What's the difference? I said, I just told you. So we went back through that a little bit. I said, going back to the 70s, we used to back our currency before that with gold. And I explained to him the way the gold standard worked. And I explained to him that we backed our currency with a commodity. So you could, at any time, call in your dollar for gold, for a certain weight of gold. And he was like, yeah, you can still do that now. You can still buy gold. I said, but you can't demand gold. That used to be, it was convertible. You could convert your dollars to gold on command. And we could only print so much money against that gold supply before it, quote unquote, devalued. That's why you hear all this stuff about printing money. Because they would print money, they would increase the money supply against the gold supply. And then they would decrease the money supply and they would increase it, depended on the environment. But that's what they did. If they wanted a strong dollar, they did whatever. If they wanted a weak dollar, they did whatever. But it was against a fixed amount of gold. What if we wanted to expand our environment, our economy? Well, you got to get more gold, or you got to devalue it. You got to print more money against that gold. He said, I think I'm tracking with you so far. I said, well, in 1971, Tricky Dick Richard Nixon took us completely off the gold standard. He said, what does that mean? What's backing our money now? I said, just the tax and the real resources, a.k.a. the full faith and credit of the United States. And he says, what do you mean real resources, Steve? I said, wow, okay. I said, the productive capacity of the United States, the goods, the services, the natural resources, and the tax, our labor. He's like, how does the United States have claim to that? I said, it doesn't. What it has claim to is the ability to create goods and services that you can purchase with that dollar. That dollar will be good to pay your tax with, which in the beginning, remember, we proved created buyers and sellers. He said, turnip farmer. I said, nah, man, I'm keeping it turnipy. We're not going deep dive here, brother. We're talking turnips still. And he figured out, after a little while, his eyes started glazing over. And I think he was doing me a solid listening to me. He was probably placating Grumbine. As I sat there and tried to tell him all about economics that he probably didn't even want to hear about. But he kept asking good questions. And he's such a nice guy that I wanted to take as much time as I could to answer him. I didn't feel the need to go American History X on him. I didn't feel the need to slam him and yell at him and punch him or anything. I didn't feel like he was wasting my time. I felt like he was a guy that just didn't know and wanted to know. He didn't puff up and go, you don't know what you're talking about, you moron. He didn't say, who's paying you, Soros? He didn't say anything like that. And so I didn't feel the need to call him a loser. I didn't feel the need to call him worthless. I cared very much that I spent the time answering every question he asked. Every question he asked, I wanted to answer. And so the day ended. He went his way, I went mine. I picked up the phone, and I realized that Real Progressives as a whole has to get its team better aimed, better armed, better equipped. Not only to know where the resources are, they shouldn't have to ask me what a link is. For God's sake, I put them out there so many times. There's probably really no excuse for my own team to ask that question anymore. But we got to work on how we all say these things. We got to work on explaining things to people in a more coherent, slowed down, accessible way. Am I ever going to be perfect at this? No, I'm not. I've been doing this a long time, and I've suffered really, really bad people calling me a cult leader. Really, really awful people saying awful things about my family and about myself. I've dealt with people that are quote unquote on our side who have done everything they could to destroy Real Progressives. Terrible people have tried to do that. Awful people have tried to do that. And I just dealt with it and kept moving, kept fighting. Kept coming in every day, putting my jersey on and picking up my lunch pail and trying to make these changes. No matter who tried to hurt Real Progressives. No matter how many disgusting and vile people called it a cult or called me a cult leader. No matter how many bad people did those things. Because I realized ultimately, when you say stuff like that, when you do stuff like that, it's probably a veil hiding insecurity of their ignorance. Because most people don't want to admit they're dumb, or they don't know, or they're ignorant, or they haven't heard of that, or they've no idea what you're saying, so it's got to be crazy, it's got to be stupid, it's got to be something, right? So rather than be humble and admit this, who knows what goes on in their home, right? They may come home and their husband or wife may beat them down and tell them they're a terrible person, awful, and etc., so they take it out on you online. Better that, I guess, than kicking the cat. I don't know. But who knows what they're going through? Who knows what's making them act in such a pathetic way? But suffice it to say that there are an awful lot of people out there who really do believe that we're just trying to get free stuff, that we're mooches, that we're taking other people's money. They're thinking that taxes pay for spending. They don't realize fundamentally that tax dollars at the federal level simply are deleted. And it's not hard to understand when you realize that we're not on a gold standard. These things are just coupons. When you go to see Metallica in concert, or you go to see Dr. Dre in concert, or you go see, Slick Willie or Slim Pickens or some bluegrass band or whatever it is you do. You got your ticket. When you go to the show, they punch a ticket. You might keep it because you want to keep memories that you went to the show. But that ticket's not worth a damn anymore. It's done its job. It paid to go in for the show, and now it's done. Well, that's the same way with $1. Once it's paid back as a tax, it's done its tour. It's done. It's over. The federal government doesn't save money. Federal government neither has dollars nor doesn't have dollars. It creates them every time it spends, and it deletes them every time it taxes. The dollar and the tax are the dark circle. If you remember that old sci-fi movie, you got the lights and the darks, and they come together, and then poof. That's the dollar and the tax. The dollar is a tax credit meant for the government to provision itself. Oh, these big words that are not meant for turnip farmers, provision. But if you think about it, the government needs to get things done. And the only way to get things done is to either enslave people. We don't want that. or find some way to get them to move. And they do use coercion with the tax. And the tax is what drives the entire economy. It creates buyers and sellers. It creates a need for people to have the currency. So they tax land. Oh, wait a minute. They should tax land a heck of a lot more, shouldn't they? Because land just sits there. That's a story for another day. But ultimately, you start thinking about what this means. What does it mean that federal tax dollars don't actually get regurgitated and respun up and spent on programs? What does it mean when we say taxes don't fund spending? What does it mean when Ellis Winningham says that the federal government funds the taxpayers? Think about it. The government needs to spend first so that you have money to pay your tax, so that it can provision itself. The primary purpose is for the government to provision itself, to create the things it needs to create to achieve its purposes, good or bad. So it issues a tax. And people say taxes are the cost of living in civilized society, and there's truth to that. But it doesn't mean that taxes pay for programs. Because we can spend as much as we want. We can never run out of dollars. The government never runs out of dollars. It's impossible to run out of dollars. Do you run out of inches? Do you run out of pounds? Can you run out of runs or home runs? Can you run out of molecules? Can you run out of a unit of measure? No, you can't. And the dollar is a unit of measure, like an inch. So when we talk about can we afford a Green New Deal, or can we afford health care as a right? Forget Medicare for all, folks. Of course we can afford these things. Can we afford free college? Without a second's thought, of course we can. The question is, can we create enough seats for college students that have enough teachers to teach them? Do we have enough doctors and hospitals to treat the patient load that providing free health care would, generate? We'll not run out of the money. And then someone says, but you're devaluing the dollar by spending all this money and just printing more money. Well, first of all, we're not printing money. That's not just some tricky term. The government literally marks accounts up with keystrokes and marks them down when taxes are paid with keystrokes, or spending is done, marks it down. It's that simple. Dollars are simply a unit of account. They're simply a measure. So we can afford all of these programs, every single one of them, if we have enough real resources to back them up. Now, why might you say that they don't do this? This brings me to another discussion with another country boy who's on our team, actually. Good friend, nice guy, sharp guy, electrician. Always apologizes in mosh pits. our sound engineer, Andy, and I were talking. And we are talking about what's going on in his part of Canada right now. And they just elected a right-wing guy to run their province. And this right-wing guy wants to privatize healthcare. Now, on one hand, you got a public service being paid for with public money. Freshly created public money. Canadian dollars paying for those goods and services. Of course, the Canadians are paying taxes, but they're driving their own currency by paying those taxes. But this guy wants to privatize the healthcare system there. Why is that? Well, right now, what happens is businesses run out of people to sell their goods and services to. The economy starts hitting a rough patch because you're running out of people to sell to in a given market. So, like any good neoliberal, which we'll get to in a minute, they want to privatize public services to expand markets, market solutions. Remember Elizabeth Warren saying, "You're daggone right, I'm a capitalist, I love markets." You can pretty much guarantee Elizabeth Warren's idea is to get rid of public works and push it to private services, because that's what neoliberals do. Even neoliberals with a conscience. That's what they do. Unfortunately, many people have mistakenly thought that public services, government spending, equals socialism. And they've put the Red Scare into everybody. And this is why you get nowhere. These people genuinely believe that this is socialism. And socialism equals communism. And then we're all going to whatever, right? Well, we should all know, at least at some basic level, that socialism really isn't about just government spending. It's about the relationship between labor and capital. It's about ownership. Who owns the means of production? We're not talking about turning every enterprise into a co-op. Maybe some people are, but most people aren't going that far. Whatever. If they are, who cares? That's fine. I'm not championing that, but I'm just saying the idea here is that government programs are not socialism. Maybe a social democracy where we're sitting there as a group deciding that as a nation we'd like to make sure everybody in our nation is taken care of in a certain way. But it's not socialism. And so they've got this boogeyman out there for all the turnip farmers and other folks who haven't really been exposed to a lot of book learning, who haven't really been exposed to a lot of world beyond the world that they're used to hearing from. And everybody around them says the same things. So to them, social spending equals communism. That's what Russia did. That's why Russia fell apart. That's how come we defeated Russia in the Cold War. Social spending is not socialism. It's pretty straightforward. So when we talk about economics here, we're talking purely about enhancing the lives of the 99%. Every one of us. Black, white, gay, straight, conservative, liberal, progressive, communist, I don't care. Every human being. Somebody brought up the idea of reparations earlier. Now, any court case you go to, when somebody has been victimized, that person has a right to a civil trial. And when you've been stolen from or you've been beaten down and your family's had generations of it and it's been systemic and you want recompense for being forced to go to a country, for being forced to work in a field, not you, but maybe your ancestors, whatever. Now, I'm not here to judge, but let me explain something to you. Whether or not everybody benefited from the slave trade is irrelevant. There are enough people out there, the wealthy in this country in particular, who never gave up their wealth from that era. And they passed it on to Winston and, Snodgrass and Chauncey. And all of them inherited all the windfalls from the cotton and from the corn and from the tobacco and from every other exploitation of slavery. And the indigenous people of this country, they have a huge amount of grievances from the Trail of Tears on back. And to this day, broken treaties. They've got plenty of grievances, plenty of need for recompense. Now, the people I talk to gratefully are the smart people, the ones that have done the research, and they will tell you flat out, there's not necessarily a need to take from people to make them whole, but there is a need to make them whole. And making them whole isn't necessarily just a monetary thing. It includes benefits as well. It includes structural changes. Now, when you understand economics and not my tax dollars pay for these things, you start realizing that we can fix a great many ills in this country without raising taxes to do it. Now, why is it a big deal not to raise taxes to do it? Number one, it's economically illiterate. And we want to boil it down to turnip language. It's turnip-brained to think that taxes pay for these things. Because, told you, it's just paper. How do you run out of pieces of paper? How do you run out of keystrokes? Don't be a fool. Nothing wrong with being a turnip farmer. Just don't be a fool. So, these people have been aggrieved, and their children upon children upon children have had to reap the benefit of lost opportunity based on the 40 acres and a mule that were promised many generations before that were reneged upon and never followed up. And the tribal lands that were taken with eminent domain and on and on and on. And the austerity put in these folks and the conditions by which they were let to rot. While other people just kept moving up the ladder, they were left behind. That's real. It's easy to see. You have to be blind not to see this. But that doesn't mean we have to raise taxes to pay for these things. Making right great wrongs is a moral obligation. It's not so much just a financial burden, because we can freely do it. It's a political will to make right wrongs. And that's only going to happen when people understand how the economic system works. Now, see, I see somebody, I'm not going to mention her name, but I just sat there and talked about reparations for indigenous people as well. And the tunnel vision went like this. And that's a shame. That's a real shame. Because I just sat there and addressed it. That's okay. It's going to be very, very important that people understand how economics works. Because ultimately, the goal of progressive should be to create equal opportunity, to provide a better life for people, and to make right wrongs. And yes, that includes the indigenous people of this country. So rather than pitting one group against the other, I'm more deserving. No, you're more deserving. No, I'm more, rather than be that way, because that sort of feels a little bit like a Republican, right? Feels a little bit like a Trumper to look at it like that. Maybe. Instead of doing that, realize that we have the opportunity to make right all these wrongs. And that's the beautiful thing about modern monetary theory. It's not just free money. We're not just talking, we have to do offsets. We have to restructure some things. But it's in everyone's best interest that we create a structure and a society that's built to make all people successful, not just some people, not just a few. It means so much to me that we right these wrongs and that we learn the economic system so we stop hating each other. Because I want you to think of something else too that comes as a result of this. Immigrants coming to America. They're hated. We have not only conservatives, but we have progressives even. I've seen it. Who think we should be taking care of America first. They don't realize that America's foreign policy has created refugees around the globe. Created horrible situations around the globe. And that we can make things right here in the United States for them too. We don't have to choose veterans over making sure that refugees are okay. We can make right both. But neoliberalism demands demons. It demands enemies. It demands scapegoats. And that's why you see Group A pitting against Group B and fighting back and forth. Because neoliberal identity politics has polluted the public space to such a degree that when we see an aggrieved party, rather than try to make them whole, we say, well, what about me? What about my problem? Why are you, hey, let's fix it for all. Let's fix it for all. And if you understand MMT, modern monetary theory, you learn that poverty is a political choice. You learn that we can do great things as a nation. You learn that the word taxpayer dollar is an intentionally racist construct intended to make you think of the white, wealthy capitalists who are the taxpayers. And so naturally you want to associate yourself with the taxpayer. You don't think of it as the poor Mexican or the poor black kid or the poor indigenous person living on a reservation struggling. You don't think of a taxpayer through that lens. You think of it as a white dude, a straight white dude. That's just done all the right things, always kept his nose clean. And here wasting his hard-earned tax dollars, her hard-earned tax dollars on those ne'er-do-goods. And this racist taxpayer dollar thing, coupled with the fact that taxes don't pay for federal spending at all, is why you see MMT folks fighting tooth and nail to stop the talk of paying for programs. How are you going to pay for it? Congress will authorize the spending. Congress is going to spend it into existence. They're going to create it out of thin air. The government doesn't need to fund or finance its operations. The government creates money and spends it into existence. Where are you going to find the money for that? With my fingers, I'm going to keystroke them in. Congress is going to authorize spending. It's that simple. And what I love is when you say, hey, I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to go to work. Nobody says, tell me about the pistons in the car. I don't believe you're driving your car to work. I want to hear how your axles work. I want to hear how the electrical system works before I believe your car is taking you to work. You don't hear that. But you always got some dude out there that wants to hear how the money, well, how are you telling me government is spending money into existence? That's crazy. The private Federal Reserve, blah, blah, blah. And see, this is when Steve wants to go American History X. Find a nice piece of curb. This is when I lose my shit. Right there. And that's when I have to go, woosah. There's too much misdirection, too many intentional lies out there that keep us from understanding that we can do all this stuff. And in talking with my own mother about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, guess they all laughed. They all, oh, she doesn't know economics at all. I said, I tell you what, pretend like I'm Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You know, pretend like I'm the Kurgan from the Highlander. Fight me, Highlander. Better to burn out than fade away, right? I want to sit there and say, take me on. I get the economics that she's talking about. I'm fully competent in handling that debate for you. You want to talk? Let's talk. Holy ground, Highlander, holy ground. There can be only one. You want to hear that Queen soundtrack? Here we are, born to be kings. Dun, 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 you know? That's where my mind goes, because I got to find something to distract me from the friggin' stupid shit, right? Anyway. But they don't understand it, so they mock it. And it's kind of important that we understand we're not getting where we need to get to until we figure out a way to talk to people that really are kind of pinheads and boneheads that maybe don't want to learn right up front. But we got to present it in such a way that they can catch on and hear it. And it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach, friends. That's the thing. You know, we've got people within the MMT community. These technocrats over here. Well, Steve, technically that's not correct. Technically, blah, blah, blah. Well, I think it's a bit of an oversimplification. It's an oversimplification. Blah, blah, blah. Well, and I sit there and I think to myself, dude, you go preach in the ivory towers with your friends, okay? Go talk to people that want to sit there and break out the widgets, okay? I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. That is very necessary to understand. But I'm having trouble making the pig farmer and the turnip farmer understand the idea of a currency issuer and a currency user. And they vote every single election. It's their civic duty, and damn it, they're there right on time. And they wear their little sticker, I voted. And they vote for austerity because they believe the government is full of bloat and waste. And we've got to cut spending to find the money. How do you find money when the government creates it every time it spends? Help me understand. You begin to realize why people lose their minds once they become MMTers, because it's so freaking simple, but it just defies your household budget. Everything you thought you knew, it defies it. Every single thing you thought you knew kind of goes out the window. It's like bizarro world. It's a lonely existence, my friends. It's been nice to have a few fellow travelers here over the years. But there are people that have been doing this a lot longer than me, and I've been doing it a pretty damn long time. And we are making huge strides. But I want you to understand, it's a lot more sexy to get wrapped around the axle about geoengineering, about the Rothschilds, because they want their James Bond novel. They don't think they have any power. They don't think there's anything they can do. So they want it to be at least entertaining for the story value. They want the story to be quippy. They want to be able to sit there and listen to someone go, "Hi, I'm with so-and-so, and today we're going to talk about the parts per million in my snow in my yard." And that's what they do. There's nothing they can do about it, but damn it, they want to be entertained. MMT kind of cuts through it all. Because once you realize we can have green energy yesterday, and we can afford it today, and we can afford to transition coal miners to new technology, new jobs, and you realize that we can afford a job guarantee so nobody is stuck, and you realize that no matter how many robots come into play, there is always care work. There's always serving your local community. Do you know something? We don't fund the arts anymore, do we? People say, what about artists? I say, fund the arts. Why are we not funding the arts anymore? Because people think we got to reduce spending. We got to cut the budget. We got to pull back. We got to eat our peas. And yet these same people think somehow or another we're going to come up with a UBI. Oh man, we're going to go broke. It's hyperinflation. It's this, that, and the other. But damn it, we can afford a UBI. I want you to realize how ridiculous this is, but that's okay. After all the stuff I said tonight, how do you think Social Security is funded? Do you think Social Security is going broke? A federal program. Do you think it could ever go broke? Think about it. Think about it real hard. How could the Republicans have raided a spreadsheet? I want you to think about this. I want you to think about that Social Security can be funded indefinitely, forever. We could increase it. We could add more people to the rolls. Do you know Social Security already covers survivor benefits and disability? Did you know that? Wouldn't that make Social Security a basic income? Oh, but I pay for it. They keep a tab on the spreadsheet. Steve, I'm telling you right now, I pay my Social Security. I'm entitled to that money. It's sitting there in a lockbox somewhere. I'm telling you. That's not how it works. Just like every other thing. The money goes in, FICA's a tax. It's collected, it's deleted. They keep a tally, though, of how much you paid in. And that's what you get at the end. Wouldn't it be better just to make sure that everybody got a living wage that is eligible for Social Security? Why in the world wouldn't Social Security keep up with the cost of inflation? Why wouldn't people be able to live their life in dignity? Why is this even a subject of discussion? Because people don't realize that the government creates the money freely. They want to fight about it. They want to talk about rating spreadsheets and stuff. And it's hard for me to take it seriously when I know. I mean, I know too much now. I can't unknow it. And yet I got to talk to everybody as if I'm Mork from Ork. Nanu, nanu. The dollar is a tax credit. Nanu, nanu. I've got to repeat it over and over again. Did did that boy just say that taxes are don't fund spending? Did he just say the government's going to just print money? I do believe he did. That boy's nuttier than the fruitcake. Holy Toledo. What are we going to do with him? Eating too many of them there Funyuns. I mean, I just want to be clear. If you guys really want a better tomorrow, if you guys really want to survive this climate disaster coming, if you guys really just want to be able to get rid of student debt for kids so they're not walking out of college with a friggin' mountain of crap strapped on their back, it's easy enough to do. It just requires political will. And that means you'll understand now why when I see people trolling in the feeds that don't understand this stuff, they act like it's me that doesn't understand. Folks, I'm having to say it in 20 different languages. Do you realize I'm having to say the same thing 40 different ways to try and touch 5 million different types of people? I'm the one that doesn't know what I'm talking about? Really? Please. Come on, this is the problem. This is when I go American History X. This is when I lose my temper and I lose my patience. Because I'm doing everything under the sun to try and reword it and say it in a different way so that the turnip farmer understands it, the kid in the hood understands it, the guy at the rifle range understands it, the state police officer understands it, the engineer understands it, the politician understands it, the activist understands it, the grandma, the grandpa understand it, the brother and sister understand it, the guy at the grocery store understands it. You know, the elf on the shelf understands it. And yet I'm the one that doesn't understand it. Do you ever realize how much patience it takes to not really seriously go Game of Thrones, Ice Dragon, and just spread the wings? I mean, I dream of being that ice dragon and just burning down that wall. Just... I'm not joking. You can ask the team. Every time in my chats, that's the GIF I put in there, is the ice dragon, because that's what I feel like. I just want to watch as the wall crumbles. If you don't make me, oh God. It's like, stop puffing up and acting like you don't know. And I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help us. Why in the world would I tell you taxes don't fund spending? Think about what purpose, what possible reason would I have? I'm not advocating that we don't need taxes. See, I'm not a libertarian. I'm not sitting there saying don't tax. We need to tax. to keep the currency going. We don't need to tax as much. We maybe need to cut some here, add some there, whatever. We need to reshuffle the way our tax game is, for sure. The wrong people have too much and the right people have too little. When I say that, I mean we should all be living lives with dignity. But that doesn't mean that taxes pay for spending. They don't finance the programs. I'm sorry. And this is when I have to inject grow up, Peter Pan, Count Chocula, to keep myself sane. It's not because I'm being mean, because if I was being mean, I would introduce someone to American History X. Because there is a certain amount of rage that goes inside when you realize how many people die in the name of the myth that we can't afford these things. When you realize how many people have gone without necessary surgeries for years. They have not gotten their cancer treatment for years and they die because of something about affordability. It's completely not necessary. And I'm not talking socialism yet. I'm not, though. I'm just talking common sense economics that understands the difference between a currency issuer and a currency user. Now, I'm going to go a little bit deeper here for a minute. There is nothing worse than hearing the word Zimbabwe, Weimar Republic, Venezuela, you name it. All these hyperinflations that have occurred in the course of history get thrown up as if we've never heard them before. As if it's Groundhog Day. We're going to talk about I guess you need to crack the spine of a book. Haven't you ever heard of hyperinflation? Haven't you ever heard of what happens when we print more money? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Haven't you ever heard of Zimbabwe? And that's when I do that whole... You remember Tom Hanks in The League of Their Own when he's watching the girl and he's like, you know that? You remember that from the other? That's what I feel like sometimes when they do it. But the truth is that people are afraid they've been lied to. And so you say, well, how do we explain hyperinflation so people get it? Well, there's a lot of things that go into a hyperinflation. The one thing that hyperinflation is not caused by is printing money. Printing money is the outcome of a government that can no longer enforce its tax, that has political corruption, has been completely run amok. It's usually got foreign denominated debt. In other words, remember I said the government can afford anything it wants in its own currency as long as there's product for sale. But a government cannot pay for anything it wants that's available only in a foreign currency, which takes us all the way back to a time known as the Weimar Republic. And the Weimar Republic was the German Wehrmacht. Germans thought they were going to run around with those pointy little hats with a little tip on the thing, you know. And they were penalized heavily for their egregious behavior in World War I. The Treaty of Versailles made them horrible, just obliterated their productive capacity, obliterated their entire economy, took away everything. They couldn't do anything because the French demanded their payment be made in French francs, something the German people couldn't create. German people wanted to pay in Reichsmarks. Reichsmarks are not good here. They made them pay in gold. They made them pay in something they didn't have. So the Germans could have printed 1,000,000 Reichsmarks, and it wouldn't have bought a bag of bread, a bag of flour, because the French had run them into the ground with the Treaty of Versailles. And they were held hostage until the madman Adolf Hitler comes sweeping in and ironically teaches them the art of fiat currency. And you saw Germany, this little tiny blip on a map. Evil as they want to be. So, Weimar, not about printing money. The productive capacity had been shot to hell and back, and they were forced to pay horrific debt in a foreign currency. They were brought to their knees. And that level of punitive austerity is what laid the seeds for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich. Not printing money. So when you hear people say that, you'll understand why I get rabidly angry. Because once again, it's not just a mistake. Because they say it with utter conviction. This is the stuff that is used against us to keep us from spending on the people. These tales, these fairy tales. Now, I've told this story before, but we're going to talk about Zimbabwe real quick. Zimbabwe, an agrarian nation, didn't have a lot of developed capacity to serve its people. And you've got Mugabe, who decides that he's going to take the farmland from the colonizers and give it to the indigenous folks who didn't know how to farm it. So the entire productive capacity of Zimbabwe fell to ridiculous levels. They could not meet the demand for the needs of the people. And because they didn't really have anything to offer outside of the country, they tried to print their way out of it. And all of a sudden they had $1 trillion to buy a loaf of bread, and it was worthless. Hyperinflation brought on by an extreme scarcity and absolute inability to produce the goods and services needed to address the needs of the population. It had nothing to do with printing money. So why would these people say that? After a while, you begin to think that they just want us to suffer. But then you realize they've been lied to. That should make you angry. How many people have died in fear of hyperinflation? Think about how many people did not get the services they needed. Think of all the times we didn't serve the people in Appalachia, the inner cities, you name it. How many died in the name of fear of hyperinflation, of Zimbabwe, of Weimar? A lot. And then you look at Venezuela. Now, there's an awful lot of corruption that went on. Some of it from external forces, some of it from internal forces. But you had some other major problems there. You had foreign-denominated debt. You had a single commodity that the entire economy resided on, and it could be messed with by external sources. And then worse. Remember at the beginning we talked about monetary sovereignty and currency issuers and currency users. Venezuela had pegged their currency to the US dollar. Just like the gold standard, they were on the dollar standard. So they gave up monetary sovereignty because in order to be able to have convertibility from their currency to the US dollar, they had to have enough dollar holdings to do that. So they were easily destroyed. This is the problem with pegging your currency to a commodity like gold, silver, or oil, or anything else, cotton, or a foreign currency. And yet there are people out there to this day that will fight you tooth and nail saying we should go back on the gold standard. Are they idiots? Yes. No, I don't. Probably. I don't know. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're good dancers. I don't know. Maybe they do a mean river dance. All I know is that it's stupid. We won World War II. We were able to make our mobilization for World War II by removing the gold standard. By unleashing the power of fiat, we were able to mobilize to meet the needs. We were able to make every factory, every productive capacity of our nation go to one single cause. Everybody was at work. The whole place was at work. And so what did we have to do? Because the economy was going to overheat. They sold war bonds to take money out of circulation, to delay purchasing power, to prevent runaway inflation, because everyone was at full employment and every factory was moving at 120% to keep up with the war effort. There was no additional productive capacity. And remember what happened to Zimbabwe. Remember what happened to Weimar. Are you beginning to understand hyperinflation a little bit better? It's not just a persistent rise in prices, although that is a part of this. It's really conditional to a factor like a shock in the commodity that they're tied to, foreign debt, corruption, massive upheaval within the population, any number of things that have nothing to do with printing money. So that brings us to the Green New Deal and full employment and a job guarantee, which is what I'm fighting for, which is what I think most real progressives are fighting for. We can afford all this stuff without any problem at all. I've made that case so clear. You would have to literally, I don't know, I got a million things that I want to say about the person that wouldn't get this by now. But you must need additional help. You need it said different. I don't know. I don't know why you don't get this, but maybe you don't get this. Maybe you don't get this. I don't know. But to me, at this point in time, I feel like I have provided plenty of information here for you to get it. So I'm going to touch on the national debt. So as it pertains to deficit spending, as it pertains to the Green New Deal, so you have this in your back pocket as well. During the gold standard and previously, we sold debt instruments. We sold bonds. And those bonds were meant to help fund the war effort. Okay? The nation didn't have a full monetarily sovereign status at that time. Whenever you peg your currency to a commodity and you have to have it convertible to that, You've given up your sovereignty. Whenever you have an external constraint like that tied to your currency, you've given up monetary sovereignty. Maybe you don't have the full capacity to create the things you need and you have to take on foreign debt. You've given up monetary sovereignty. Or at least a partial amount of sovereignty. You've given up some of your sovereignty. So you've lost a lot of flexibility in what you can do. So what the government did was it would sell bonds. Now, when it was on the gold standard, this mattered more because you only have a certain amount of gold, and it's not about the amount of money in circulation, it's about spending. So spending is what creates inflation, not the availability of money. It's the spending of money. And that's why they sell bonds, to take money out, to delay purchases. And why do people buy bonds? Because they earn an interest. Where does the interest money come from? Keystrokes, not from taxpayers. Let's see, in a different life, in a more robust Steve moment, I'd get really nasty about this point at this point because I feel like I've said it maybe 1,000 times. But we're doing a different Steve tonight. We're doing the Tom Hanks, A League of Their Own Steve. What we're doing is we're talking about the fact that since we're not on a gold standard anymore, when we sell treasuries and stuff like that, it's an anachronism. Oh man, there's a word that the farmer wouldn't be knowing. It's an old thing that doesn't have a place anymore. Doesn't serve a purpose anymore. Used to matter, doesn't anymore. An anachronism. Something that's no longer really useful, but we do it anyway. So why do we sell treasuries? Why do we sell bonds if they're not needed to fund the government? It's a good question. That's one that you go, well, why do we do that, right? A lot of people like to save in U.S. dollars. China, we don't take out a credit card from the People's Republic of China. Now, what happens is China does a lot of business with the U.S. And when they sell goods and services into the U.S., being a net exporter right now, they get U.S. dollars in exchange for their goods and services. Well, they do so much business in the U.S., they have to decide, well, what do we do with all these dollars? We don't really want to bring them back home and do something with them because we use the yuan there. Y-U-A-N. So they say, well, maybe we'll keep them parked at the Fed. But they're not really doing anything there. They're just sitting there to facilitate trade. I know. Why don't we go ahead and buy some bonds and we'll earn a small interest on the money we're just leaving sit there? So why is the government selling them bonds when their money would just sit there anyway? Because the Fed wants to control interest rates. This is called monetary policy. And so bank lending rates and all this other stuff come down to interest rates. How do they maintain an interest rate? How do they maintain a positive interest? Sometimes they sell debt instruments to take money out of the economy to meet their overnight target for the interest rate they're trying to strive for, because it's a floating exchange rate. That's what it means to be free floating. The dollar's value goes. So the bank says we have a target rate we want it at, so they'll sell bonds to keep it at that target interest rate. And what do a rich get? The rich get a basic income out of it because the rich are the ones that are buying these treasury bonds. But there's more to it than that, right? Because you've never heard of a treasury bond going bankrupt. You've never heard of a treasury bond failing. It's a safe-ass bet. So every pension plan in America is chock full of treasury bonds. Every state pension has got tons of treasuries. Every state government for a rainy day buys treasuries. It's not just the rich, it's all these other entities that buy these bonds to help fulfill their fiscal responsibility as a currency user. Because they need a safe investment should the tax revenue dry up because of the natural ebbs and flows of the economy or the race to the bottom by these states fighting with each other, cutting taxes like Kansas and Texas and others. Folks, I can go on all night without taking a breath. I don't have a single note in front of me anywhere. This is all right off the top of my head. So I could probably do it better if I took notes, maybe. I don't know. But a lot of this stuff should be really common sense at this point. So the national debt is nothing more, at the end of the day, the sum total of every untaxed dollar in existence in the economy. Because, drum roll, the dollar is a tax credit. As I stated in the very beginning, the dollar is nothing more than a tax credit. So if we pay off the debt, guess what that means we do? There's no real way to pay off the debt. We just shrink the money supply by quote-unquote paying off the debt. Well, what if we paid off all the debt? Well, we would have no money in the economy. Think about that. We could have bank credit. And so the New Deal, the Green New Deal, they say, well, what about the national debt? You mean we're going to have to expand the economy to go to the moon again? We're going to have to expand the economy to have a job guarantee? We're going to have to expand the economy to take care of the environment? You mean we're going to have to expand the economy to fix our infrastructure? You mean we're going to have to expand our economy? Yeah, we're going to have to do that. Yep. Hashtag sorry, not sorry. Yes, that's what we're going to have to do. So why are these people so flipped out about the quote-unquote national debt? Really big numbers. Of course they're really big numbers. There's a lot of us here, 350 million of us. And we don't live in a closed economy. So that means we have something weird that we have to consider in this process called sectoral balances. Oh shit. The friggin' turnip farmer's head's going to spin when we talk about sectoral balances. How the hell do I talk about sectoral balances without making their head spin? Here's what I'm going to try to do. It's not going to work, but I'm going to try it anyway. So here is our graph. Okay? This is our graph. And in our graph, we have three sectors. We have public debt, the balance of account in public sector. We have private debt, the balance of account in the private sector. And then we've got rest of world. And then we're going to cut this in half. So we're going to flip it like this. And the credits or the debits, the assets up here, and the corresponding debits are down here. One man's spending is another man's income. One woman's spending is another woman's income. One person's debt is another person's asset. And when the government spends, it creates a debt because it's a tax credit. It's waiting for its tax to come back to clear it out. So when you look, and I'm going to get rid of my foam here. When you look at this, you say to yourself, So the national debt, we've already established, is a sum total of every non-tax dollar in existence. And then we ask ourselves, how in the world do we know if we've hit too much? What's too much? My God, we're all going to die. What's too much? And you look at the private debt. You look at the private debt. And these kids that have never had their first job are carrying $100,000 in debt for all the college they went to. You look at that private sector debt pool, you look at all the upside down houses, all the people that are trapped in mortgages that still suck, and all that debt just sucking the life out of them. And you look at all the medical debt. I think it was something like $88 billion in medical debt alone. You start looking at this debt, this private debt. And then you look at the rest of the world. And we know the United States hasn't been a net exporter in a few 24 hours. The United States has been a net importer well over $500 billion a year. So $500 billion a year is leaving the economy to go to foreign lands, whatever, to pay for our imports. Which is fine because we're just trading pieces of paper for their goods and services. So we're not hurting our real resources. We're hurting our pieces of paper. And we can't run out of pieces of paper. So that leaves us with one place to spend, and that's the federal government. And that's why the debt keeps growing, because they keep having to spend money into existence. The rest of that money is around the world. In different places. Some of it's here, some of it's there, but whatever. Bottom line is that the regular people, we, the people, need health care. We need the environment satisfied. We don't have to cut the military to pay for spending. That's not why we cut the military. We cut the military because we don't want to blow up everybody. But wait a minute. Have you ever seen a hammer used to build a house? I have. I've also seen a few scary movies where a hammer was used to bludgeon people over the head with it. A hammer is not always something to drive a nail in. Sometimes it's used to, I don't know, bang a wheel back onto a car. Sometimes it's used to, I don't know, level a board. Sometimes it's used to drive a nail. But a hammer has multiple uses. And if you think about the military, there's a peacetime use for it too. We have a lot of infrastructure that needs to be rebuilt in this country. We have an incredible amount of national defense that we could do here at home in terms of fortifying many of the levees and dams. There is so much that we could do to mobilize to save ourselves from cataclysmic climate change and provide a job for every American. So we don't need to cut the military. We just need to have a person in charge that understands what the possibilities are and make a different use of the military. Because every one of those people is an employee. Every one of those people's families, they're looking for a job. Just like coal miners in West Virginia. What happens when we go to green energy? Just say, fuck them? Oh, well. Who cares? Quit your bitching. What do you want, free stuff? Is that our tact? Is that our angle? Is that what we're going to do? What is this, Even Stevens payback for the teabaggers of West Virginia? Hey, eat your peas? No. Those are families, those are children, those are people that need goods and services. They need jobs. And a federal job guarantee would allow that. Now, I want to talk about this because a lot of people have this idea of the march of the robots. They have this automation thing, automation fetish. I don't know about you all, but I see a lot of work needs to be done, and there's no robots doing it. And I was cruising around the TV the other day, and I saw Captain Kirk giving orders to Spock. And damn it if Spock didn't talk to Scotty. And Scotty goes, I'm a doctor, not a automation. Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor. The Klingons were freaking tripping. I watched them doing the moon. They were like moonwalking stuff, you know. And I'll be damned if Klingons didn't have work too. Klingons were working. They were doing all kinds of stuff. They were having fun, talking about trouble with tribbles and shit. And damn it if Darth Vader wasn't putting those freaking stormtroopers to work building the damn Death Star. Fucking Darth Vader. And those damn Jawas. Fucking Jawas picking up robots all over the fucking desert. The fuck? Don't they realize automation's going to take their job from them? And on a serious note, there is so much service work and care work that has to be done. So many children with autism that are not being treated today. Kids are still going to gym class every third Thursday. You got to mark it on your calendar to remember what day to send them with their shoes. We're not funding the arts. We're not treating kids to an art class. We're not taking them to band practice. We're not paying for their sports gear. They're out there literally privatizing all of this. What happened to driver's ed in schools? Do you understand what I'm saying? The march of the robots may wipe out some rote tasks, may wipe out some other things, but there is a megaton. We have to redefine what work is. And we've been so conditioned that if private business doesn't want to compensate for it, then it's not real work. If you're a guitar player, what if you want to teach people how to play guitar? If you're a surfer, what if you want to teach people how to surf? If you're an artist, what if you want to make paint job, for the community? Why can't we compensate for different work? Why do we always get held to the same old bullshit that the capitalists do? These are the same lefties. See, I'm getting angry. That want to complain about capitalism. But then when we show them that we can serve our local communities, not worrying about whether it produces revenue, but compensating these jobs. Why is it that they bring up automation? I mean, do you understand why I get to thinking about American History X when they say this stuff? I'm like, dude, that curb over there looks like it's got your name on it. I say that as a release valve because my son has gone 8 months without a TSS. And he's probably going to go a full year without a TSS because there's nowhere near enough people. His inclusion specialist meets with him once every 2 weeks. Now, if you've ever run around with an autistic kid, you know that a lot changes between week 2 and week 4. They need help day to day. And they go to these daycares because there are no specialty centers that focus on sensory processing disorder. So they're thrust in there and they're treated like dum-dums. Things are changing. Things are getting better ever so slightly. but we could have tons more services for people that really need them. And we could do a lot more for awareness and education than we do today. And these are all jobs. Automation's not doing that. This is the Tom Hanks League of Their Own. Moment. And you think to yourself, holy shit, what is it going to take to make people realize that the wagon maker hated the car maker and the damn abacus maker despised the fucking calculator? You know, it's those sorts of things. I mean, can you imagine the jockey, the horse racing jockey, looking over there at the car racing guy going, "You son of a bitch. You're going to take my job, you little son of a bitch." Horses are the only real racing that goes on. Those cars aren't real. Folks, we've got to really disabuse ourselves of the ignorance. There is a lot of work that has to be done. And that work isn't going to be done by robots. And if it is done by robots, hypothetically, your father can't walk and he can't eat. And you want to sit down with your father and you want to tend to him. Maybe he's on his deathbed. I don't know. You want a robot coming in there. "I am C312. I am here to rub your cheek. Sir, how does that feel? Ah, let me give you a reach around." I know they've got more realistic ones these days. But I'm dead serious about this. When we look at freedom and mobility in this country, and we look at women who have been kept out of the workforce because they've sacrificed raising families, and they're in terrible relationships, situations where these people are trapped in abusive and they're afraid to speak up. A federal job guarantee means that they can pick up and go anywhere and immediately get a job as a right. Federally funded, locally administered. And what do I mean by that? Well, what jobs are they going to compensate? I don't know, Jim. What are they doing on the USS Enterprise, baby? What are they doing in your local community? I don't know. I guess you better get down to your local community and work it out and be a part of your community and help them figure out what jobs they're going to do. I guess you're going to have to take part in democracy. You can't just sit in your easy chair and wonder what jobs they're going to do. You get to be a part of that. It's a democracy enhancer. But the Green New Deal requires a job guarantee because we've got to mobilize people to take care of a lot of things that have been left undone. Green jobs, and I'm not talking about the high end, I'm talking about jobs that have zero carbon footprint or low carbon footprint, that are there, that do not harm the environment, that can help us mobilize to meet the needs. It's not hard to understand what I'm saying, folks. The jobs are created by the communities. It's funded by the federal government. The local communities determine what they're going to fund and not. And listen, if you live in a teabagger heaven where they value guns and they don't want to pay you to do things that you want to do, move to an area. And this is the beautiful thing. You have the flexibility and freedom this way to move to an area that is more to your liking. You want to talk about states' rights? You want to talk about freedom? Here you go. Here you go. Local communities, local economies, local. All your local bullshit. There you go. That's it. Well, you got to just do make work? I don't know, man. Is your community the kind of community that says, let's just do make work? If you're living in a community it's just all about doing make work, that's on you. If you surround yourself with people that think make work is the type of work you do, then that's on you. Or it's on you to change it. Get in your local community and make sure those jobs are jobs that you want to see done. Champion, lobby, get involved. That's what the job guarantee is all about. So if you want a job guarantee for artists, you better show up to your town hall and vote to make sure that happens. Do you understand what I'm saying? Don't tell me it's make work. Don't be a loser. Oh, yeah, I did. I just went there. Why is that? Because they just broke it down in spades, man. I dropped the symbols, and I'm telling you right now, there's no excuse for people to say anything incorrect about a job guarantee ever again. Ever again. Ever again. Well, we need to have a UBI because the UBI... Well, guess what? Let's talk about the UBI for a minute. Well, if we give everybody $1,000, it's just like a school voucher. If we give every student $1,000 towards their education, the rich still go to the school they want. The poor still end up getting pushed out. You got to do something different. A school voucher is not going to get it done. It's status quo. Well, guess what? It's the same thing with the UBI. Now you're subsidizing shit wages, and you've given the right wing their inroad to eliminate the social safety nets, because the right wing has a version of the UBI too. And guess what? I know it's crazy. I know it's interesting. I know you won't believe what I'm about to tell you. But this world is not just progressives. There are conservatives in this country too that want to get rid of social programs. They do. And so when you give them a UBI, just like many of the conservatives, ironically, there are some conservatives that want to give a reparation. And it's for a very wrong reason. They want to do it the wrong way because what they want to do is they want to say, here's your reparations. Now, how come you're not thriving? How come you're not doing great? How come you're not perfect? See, we're better than you still. Even after giving you reparations, we're still better than you. Well, reparations is a 360 thing. There is part financial, there's part systemic, there's part programmatic, and there's part support. There's all these aspects to it that exceed just a dollar value. And it's the same with every other thing I've brought up. That's why welfare programs typically don't pull people out of poverty, because they're not meant to pull people out of poverty. My God, think about this. You slip and fall into a creek, and the water level is up to here. Your foot is trapped under a stick, and you can't get out. Now, all of a sudden, somebody says, well, we're going to drain some of the water out of the creek here to help you. You're like, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. It's like, well, here, we'll give you a straw. The straw is an inch long. You're like, you're still sucking water in. You're like, oh, I'm drowning. They're like, well, let's lower the water just a little bit more. And they lower it here. But you lost the straw, and you're like trying to get your nose above the water line. They lowered the water. There's your UBI. But you're still drowning. And you're dead. Why? Because there's no amount of UBI they could give you that would equal all the services. There's no amount of UBI that they would give you. And sure as shit, I'm telling you right now, well, we've given them a UBI. There's no excuses. They made different choices. They chose to squander their money. Well, that's too bad, so sad. Thanks for playing. Goodbye. Thank you for playing. But Social Security could be expanded to meet the needs of people that don't fit neatly into the job guarantee. and maybe don't fit neatly into the current Social Security environment. And remember, we already talked about Social Security. It can't go broke. It can be expanded. It can be done anything. It requires people with brains thinking about this stuff. And not just fighting back and going, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. No, I do know what I'm talking about. And I can run game on you all day long. But there's that guy again. We don't want him coming out. We want to keep him at bay. We want to keep him in a little jar. The evil Steve up on the shoulder going, freaking fillet the fuckers. No, I just want to talk kindly and sweetly. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. This Green New Deal solves so many problems. Because guess what, folks? If we don't fix the climate, the earth will keep going. It'll go just fine. We won't, though. And there'll be a lot more suffering, a lot more pain, and a lot more death. And you don't get the luxury of picking who it is. And that should scare the shit out of you. As ice melts from 30 billion years ago, and all of a sudden new diseases come back out of the ice and ravage the land. There's so much. There's so much. The last thing in the world we need to hear about is it going to cause hyperinflation? What's the cost of not doing something? I don't even like that angle. Because that indicates that they're on equal footing. There is no cost. We can afford it, fucker. I'm sorry I did it again. You see why I get angry? Does it make sense? Does it make sense? It makes sense to me. But I try and be sweet because I get too many bad people, sweet people, talking about how mean I am. What a dick Grumbine is. He's a dick. You stupid son bitch. You cocksucker. He's a son bitch. That son bitch. Let me tell you something, boy. That son bitch. And I'm here to tell you, Tom Hanks, League of Their Own or not, we can do all these things. And we can survive and thrive. We can lift all ships. This is a long-ass live stream, and I've kept my cool for the most part. I've had a few cracks in the armor, but I've had some fun. It's the only way I could keep going on. Because you start counting the bodies. You start counting the loss of life. You start thinking about all the people that have died that didn't need to die. And you start raging out. Folks, I've been doing this for 10 years. Do you know how many people I think of are dead? And how many people I've wanted to save in my mind that I couldn't? And that's what drives me every day to do this stuff. I count these trolls with loss of life. I think of people shriveling up as they can't eat and they're on a central feeding tube. And their arms are flapping involuntarily as they're about to die. And hospice comes in and you're giving them a little sponge of water on their lips. And the morphine to get them through. Because we didn't have enough money to treat the cancer before it ate them alive. Because we didn't invest in R&D. Because we were worried about hyperinflation. Because we didn't want socialism. We didn't want free stuff. We didn't want all this stuff. I count lives, folks. And that's no joke. I wake up, the first thing I do is look at my phone to see what idiots have said something stupid about what we've done. I call one of my team members to plan the day out so we can plan what we're going to do as real progressives. People are like, oh God, Steve's on the phone again. But it's every day. Every single day. every single day. My family's looking at me going, oh my God, Steve, put the fucking phone down. Put the phone down, Steve. Steve, eyes up here, be here now. I'm like, but people are dying. So I do a podcast called Macro and Cheese. I do these live streams. I teach people on the side, MMT. I talk to anybody and everybody. I help plan events. I do everything I can. And there's still people, even within the privileged sector of MMT, that have shit to say about my style, my persona, my organization, my this, my that, my the other, cult leader this, cult leader that. And I say, folks, sometimes I'm going to let fly a fuck you and mean it. Because people are dying. And I'm committed like nobody you've ever seen. I mean, I'm talking about locked in like a pit bull with a piece of meat in its mouth. I'm not letting this thing go until we win. It's that serious. And we need your help. We not only need your help to push for legislation and help the people that are fighting. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat. It doesn't matter whether you're a Green. It matters that you're a human being. And we need to change the way society thinks of this stuff. We need to talk about it to everyone. Because it's not a partisan issue when you understand how the economics works. It's not partisan at all. It's just ledgers. It's just balance sheets. It's priorities of life. And then you realize what we can do. And then you realize the only thing standing in your way is that we got to convince an entire movement to believe it too. So that's why we need your help at Real Progressives too. We need volunteers here, folks. We need people that want to learn MMT, that want to help teach others MMT, that want to learn about the environment, that want to learn how this stuff works for democracy, that learn how this works for healthcare, that learn how this works to assuage problems with technology and innovation, to learn how to bring about equality using economics, to end wars by eliminating the conditions that create them through economics. We need your help. We need your help. We need your assistance. And if you can't help, and there's a million things you can do, folks. We need people out in the streets that can help organize, but we need people sitting behind a computer screen too. Don't let your age, young or old, be a hindrance. Don't let your financial station in life be a hindrance. Don't let your ability to travel be a hindrance. Folks, I am Professor Xavier. I can't be mobile anymore due to my own personal circumstances. I've got to rely on people and my ability to plan projects and execute to do it from remote. We need your help. And we need your help financially too. Yeah, here comes the financial pitch. The enemies that we're fighting against are very well funded. Very, very well funded. Then they're not begging for $5 here, $5 there. They're getting millions of dollars. Protect wealth. They spend money to protect their money. Folks, we barely bring enough money in to keep the website up and to keep all the service. Nobody. We've got all these people work around the clock and none of us are getting paid. We're not looking for, it's not about getting paid. It's about being able to address the things that build the systems there so that we can execute and move on. But to be fair, let me say something. Why shouldn't we try to turn this into a professional place so that we can attack these groups that have nothing but time on their hands and focus to beat our asses into the ground? Why shouldn't people as passionate and desiring of this, why shouldn't it be our full-time job? Why shouldn't we be able to earn a living and take care of our families, fighting tooth and nail? Why should we have to play seconds to the groups that are kicking our ass? Why shouldn't we be funded in such a way that we can compete and win in a battle of ideas by taking over media, by taking over the streets, by doing things differently, by beating them at their own game. Why shouldn't we? What makes us less valuable in that equation? We need people to help us raise funds, and we need donors, and we need people that are willing to say, I'm proud to be a real progressive, and not hide behind it, but stand up and really mean it so that we can get out there. Do you realize most people don't even know what the hell I just talked about for the last 2 hours? Most of these other alternative media people are just reading off things oh, well, I'll tell you something about Donald Trump. Rumor has it that, what? Okay, great. There's your alternative media. If that's what you want for entertainment, I mean, okay. I'm sitting here telling you how to fight for a war. And it's not just me. There's 100 volunteers. You can be in that mix. We need you. But we also need money because, just so you know, the software to be able to do projects is like between $9 and $30 per person. Volunteers are already putting in crazy hours. And then asking them to put in hundreds of their own dollars too to do this is absurd. We need help. And I'm not ashamed to ask for your help. It costs money to run a website. It costs money to travel, to do education things. It costs money to create video. It costs money to increase the bandwidth. It costs money to do podcasts. It costs money to buy mics. It costs money to buy lights. It costs money. Why shouldn't we ask for it? Why should we be ashamed? I'm not, and I'm here to ask you. We have a PayPal. We have a Patreon. Folks, we need professional services too, if you think about it. If you're a web developer, we don't necessarily need you to donate money, but wouldn't it be great if you donated the service to help us get our web where we want it to be? If you have the ability to videotape from a scene, if you're going to a Bernie Sanders event, or you're going to another event, a Tulsi event, or this event, or you're going to an academic, wouldn't it be great if you said, hey, I can live stream that event for you? I can help. Hey, I'm going to this trade show, or hey, I'm going to this protest, or hey, I can live stream for you. Hey, I can write an article about that. Hey, I've got an inroad, I can write an article. I mean, there's so many ways to help. Hey, I've got a graphic arts background. Hey, I've got video editing background. Hey, I draw good pictures. I can do graphics, hand-drawn graphics even. I can do cartooning. I'm a pretty good manager. I can help manage. I'm a good organizer. I can help organize. There's so many things that we need help with. We need you. And I'm not embarrassed to ask it. I think we're worth it. We've proven, while everybody else has risen, we have proved to stick it out. We've been here day in, day out for 4+ years. Come May, I think, yeah. Folks, we need your help. I hope you got something out of the night. Tonight was fun for me. I tried a little different. It went long. I don't do these very often. In fact, it's been a very long time since I did a marathon. If you have any questions about the content that I put forward, I'll be happy to answer those questions. And if it's not me, it'll be somebody on our team. We will find answers for you. We will give you resources. We will bring the experts like Fidel Kaboub, who was on live today, who's always proud to wear his real progressive shirts wherever he goes. Stephen Hale is always proud to wear his real progressive shirts wherever he goes. We've had Ellis, Warren Moser. I mean, folks, we're not bringing weak, we're bringing strong. And I wish that I had more time to devote. I wish I could do this 7 nights a week, but I can't. I have a real job that unfortunately I have to go to pay the bills since I can't pay them doing this. I'd love to do this and pay the bills, but I can't. And so that puts me in an awkward situation. We've got Savage Joy, who interviews all the candidates for you. We've got Andy who's creating the best sound. You know, our podcast to me is the best podcast out there, bar none. Macro and Cheese. Take a look. If you haven't heard it before, listen to it. In any event, we need your help. I thank you for bearing with me. I look forward to seeing you all in the future. And remember, I'm not always going to be this guy. There's going to be times when I come out flaming and dropping elbows of truth and everything else. But just for one night, remember, I really do care. And this really is important. And I hope you all learned something tonight. I'm out. Have a good night, everybody.